So what other pieces of technology? The integrated circuit?
The integrated circuit. The transistor. Here's a case where the developers of the transistor at Bell Labs, Brattain and William Shockley, were working on this for 10 years. What's the premise of the transistor? Okay, first of all, you know what a transistor is, right? What is it?
Well,
It's a device that conducts electricity and resists electricity. So it's a transmitter and a resistor, hence a transistor. But here's the purpose of the device. It is what before 1947, what we relied on in our circuitry were tubes, radio tubes. I don't know if you remember back in the old television sets or remember, okay, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but.
Well, I'm not as young as I look.
Before we got to flat screen monitors, remember the long tubes for televisions?
Mm-hmm.
They were called cathode ray tubes, CRTs. And if you look at some of the earlier computer designs, the first Macintosh, the first IBM PC, they have the large cathode ray tubes as the monitors.
Mm-hmm.
What that was in the 1920s and 30s, those were switches. Current goes on, it's the Edison light bulb, basically the incandescent tube.
Okay.
There's a filament in a vacuum, current goes in, and it goes in both directions, and it lights up the filament. That's why the old radio tubes, you could see them light up on the inside. They conducted electricity.
All right.
They were transmitters of electrons. What Brattain and Shockley were trying to do at Bell Labs was create a device that instead of transmitting a whole flow of electrons in either direction, bidirectional flow of electrons, could transmit one electron one at a time in only one direction. So it's effectively a soft switch. It's one electron at a time in one direction. One electron at a time. Remember, when one electron goes through, digitally, that's a 1. When no electron goes through, digitally, that's a 0. So it's the beginning of digital computing. Okay?
That's huge.
Okay, now, to do that, and they were trying to do this for easily 10 years. Couldn't do it. They couldn't get it just one electron at a time through the circuit. Even though they had the right idea, they couldn't develop it technically. Then, in 1947, President Harry Truman told George Marshall, General George Marshall, take the lowest common denominator of technology from that craft and bring it, this is before Corso got there, and this is 47, and bring it to a company, a defense contractor, because you want loyalty here, a defense contractor that's working on the same thing. So Marshall's group brought that piece of integrated circuitry to Bell Labs, where Brattain and Shockley reverse engineered it and said, oh my God, we're using silicon, they're using silicon, but they've got silicon doped with another element in it. It's arsenic. That's what gives us the ability to control one electron at a time. So they got this device, they got this technology in 1947. By 1948, they had patented the transistor. By 1949, it was a commercial patent, and we were all walking around in 1950 with little transistor radios next to our ears.
Wow.
That's how quickly that happened. And
wow.
That began the transistor revolution.
Oh.
From that revolution, in 1947-48, then you had Texas Instruments looking at this thing and saying, we can develop this. And so in the very beginning, a group from TI moved to California's Silicon Valley, and they form Intel. And that's the beginning of the computer chip revolution in the 1960s.
Mind-blowing.
More than mind-blowing.